Hi guys, Squirrel here. Welcome to another episode of Stormworks. I hope you're enjoying the playthrough stroke educational series that I'm doing here. A lot of positive comments from you. Really appreciate that. Loads of people saying you love this game, you just got into this game, you bought it, you can't believe how cool it is. Look forward to seeing what you guys come up with. We've got this boat here that I showed you how to make, and in this episode we're going to be adding some more sensors and equipment onto the boat. Now if you remember, in the last couple of videos we were researching sensors, and currently we're researching navigation, which is almost done, which brings in some extra bits and pieces, which we'll go through later. But for now, I'm just doing a mission where I have to pick up this guy and take them over to that fishing boat there. It just needs a little extra help. We'll bring in a few more research points because we've only got 6 left, and we're going to need some more. We're going to keep the research going, basically. So I'm going to get this done, then I'll head back to the dock, and we'll start adding some stuff to the boat. There we go. I've got the fisher person in the back here, and we are 400 meters away. Now sometimes with these missions you just drive into the area and it counts the mission as completed. Other times you'll have to take the passenger and actually physically drop them off somewhere. It just depends how it works. So we'll get nearby, and actually I've got first person. I'm kind of thinking with this one, since it's a boat that he wants to get to, I think his boat was stranded or something like that. We'll grab hold of the guy and we'll just pop alongside and transfer him onto his boat, and it should trigger it. But we'll see. Anyway, fairly easy points. While I was doing all that, the navigation is completed, so we've got 6 points left. We'll get some out of this. I've got my eye on advanced sensors, but also research equipment, so we'll have to see how many points we get from this mission and then make a decision on the best way to go. There's pros and cons. Right, so if you start backing off on the throttle. If you do it just right, we won't even need to get wet. Okay. Slightly over revving. Important thing is to disengage the clutch so that you don't actually have any forward propeller. Oh, I got stuck. Okay, how do I get onto your boat, my man? Wow, your boat is crazy. You have no handles on it. 1 second. You get onto the rim of this thing. There we go. There we go. So 9 research points. And 7 grand in cash and 2 push-to-toggles. So that'll put them in our stock inventory. We'll have 2 push-to-toggles. The next time we come to use a push-to-toggle, instead of having to buy it, we'll already have them in stock. But that's that mission complete. So what we do now is bring up the map, the M key, and if we right-click, you can place a waypoint. And then when you look at the waypoint, you can actually see how far away it is. And that's the easiest way of navigating around the place, is to just follow waypoints. That's 2k away, so it's probably going to be late evening, late afternoon by the time we get there. So we'll pick up the video back in the dock. Right, here we are back in the dock. Got the boat back safely, got the research points. So let's have a quick look at what we want to spend these on. Now, looking through these, we've got 15 points available now. And, you know, you might be tempted to say, oh, well, stick it in helicopters. Yes, it's a decent option to stick it into helicopters. Is it a decent option yet? Maybe. Depends on what you want to do. It depends whether you want to focus on boats for a little while or whether you want to dive into the world of helicopters. I'm going to save that for now because I'd like to pick that up later in the series. I think we've got more work I'd like to do on the boat and things I'd like to show you before we get into helicopters, where it's a bit more complicated. One option is go with advanced sensors, which gives us this new emergency beacon. I say new, this was added in the game perhaps just over a week ago, and it provides you the ability to search for these distress beacons that people have when they crash or whatever, then distress. They set a beacon off and this locates it. This I think is more useful for helicopters than boats, so I'm going to save that until we start going down the helicopter route. Be careful when you're looking through these. Don't waste your money, don't waste your research points. For example, this to do with logic. You can do pretty much all of this inside of a microcontroller. so it kind of is limited these days, so I wouldn't recommend those. Basic mechanics are great if you want to start hinging doors open and turning things. So these are always a good bet, but not yet. The one I want to do right now is this one, which is a research equipment. This will unlock more missions for us, basically. It gives us the ability to winch things. It gives us a medical bed. It gives us rescue equipment, such as diving equipment, that kind of thing. And it also gives us a harness, which we'll need when we do the helicopter, because we want to be able to harness people up. So we're going to go with that. We'll plug that in, kick that off, and that will take an hour of real time. Meanwhile, I'm going to grab this boat back in the workshop, and we'll add some stuff to it. Right, so back in the workbench, you want to click on load, and if you go to the workshop tab, assuming you've subscribed to Squirrel's starter boat, which was shown in the previous 2 episodes, this is the boat that we built. This is the finished version. If you took the hull and you built it out yourself, just go ahead and use that. That's fine. I'll start with this just so that you know. If you want a link to that, it's in the previous episode. I'll try and remember to drop a link in this episode as well, okay? So, what do we want to do? We want to add some stuff. If we press the tab key and look for the word sensor, we can see some sensors that have been unlocked because of the research that we did. Some of the ones to note in particular are the compass and the distance sensors. There's also a clock now. So there's an altimeter, which is useful for above sea level. Not good for us with boats, but will be later with helicopters. We have an angular speed sensor. What's that? It tells you how quickly you're turning. It's no use to us right now, but it will be later on when we want to do some automated systems. There's a clock. Clock would be nice to have. We could put a clock in there. A compass sensor. It's not what you think. What we want is the compass ball. This is a compass sensor. It detects the angle that you are away from north. So again, very useful when we're automating some stuff later. This one's useful. Distance sensor. We can detect with a range of up to 250 meters how far something away is. So if we point this downwards, we can detect how deep the water is below us, which could be handy later if you want to put an alarm in to see if we're going to run aground, or if we go and rescue something from the bottom of the sea, we want to see how deep the water is, because our winch may or may not be long enough. So that's useful. GPS sensor, again, automate systems later. Linear speed sensor, this is going to tell us how quickly we're moving, so we're going to use that. Temperature probe, this is a good one when you start to head north. It'll tell you the outside temperature, or in fact the inside temperature. Wherever you put it, it has like a proximity around it. Very, very useful in the Arctic because you need to know when it's cold outside, you need to put the heater on. And a tilt sensor, great for boats, but only really for automated systems when we want to see how far the boat is tilted. So let's add a couple of things here. First one we want to do is go for the compass ball, not the sensor, put the compass ball in. So we're going to put that in the middle here. And we want to press the L key to rotate it so the N is pointing upwards like that. So we've got a nice compass right in the middle of our seating position. Now what do we want to put over here? Let me just turn off the mirroring a second. What do we want to put over here, and what do we want to do about this? You may have noticed when you drive this boat that looking down and reading that number's not so nice. It might be better if we rotated it and had the numbers facing upwards. In fact, we could probably do the same thing on all of this. We can have some numbers facing upwards here. So why don't we make some adjustments? What is it we want to display? We want to display speed. That would be a great one to have. So let's control click. You control click an object, it puts it into your hand. Control click on that display so we get a copy of it. We'll press the L key, rotate it around and drop that in. Now we could leave it like this with this fuel over here. This is going to be the speed, but I've been kind of thinking, you know, we've got engine instrument stuff over here, haven't we? So why not put the RPS gauge up here so that we can see when we're adjusting the throttle and the clutch what the RPS is. We don't have to keep looking down here, looking up here like that. Let's just put it all here. So let's dig a couple of blocks out, press the X key, dig a couple of blocks like that. Press the X key again to get rid of it. And we'll control click and we'll drop another one of those digit displays in here. So we just need to rotate it around like that. We'll drop that in. So this, instead of being the fuel level over here, we'll make this, sorry, not the fuel level. Instead of this being the engine RPS, we'll make this the engine RPS. So we'll put engine RPS like that. RPS can go up to 2 digits on the front, so that should do it nicely. So we'll put the engine RPS here. We won't delete this right now because we want to see what we want to basically move the wiring from here to here. So I like to leave that stuff. Same thing applies to the fueling. Where do you want to put the fueling? Well, given all the engine stuff's on the left and all our sort of, you know, current visual data is on the right, I'm kind of thinking we could put something here. We could perhaps put the fuel level there like that. So that way we've got the fuel level over here. We've got the engine RPS. And then down here I was thinking we might change this and have something to show us what the battery's doing. Because right now we've got a battery and we've got a generator, but we have no idea what they're doing. What is the power output on the generator? What is the battery level? We don't know. So we're going to put some stuff here for the battery. Then we'll have the fuel. Then we'll have the RPS. And over on this side, we've got the speed. And that one, I think we'll probably leave for now. We'll probably get rid of that in a second. But what we'd like to do is put the depth. So if we put 2 meters here, so we've got the speed here. And we've got the depth here. Now the depth will be in meters. It could go up to, well, 250 easily. So let's leave it as that. This one is the speed. Speed is measured by the sensor in meters per second. We don't really want meters per second. We want knots, really. Meters per second is a bit eh. In a boat, we want knots. So let's put brackets KTS for knots. And we shall modify this. We're unlikely to go above 2 digits, double digits. So 2 digits on the front is fine. And then we'll see the precision afterwards. Let's change some wiring. So we'll go up to logic and electricity. Let's get some electric wiring going in first. So anything that's currently yellow is not wired in. So I'm going to hold the mouse, hold the control key down. And now when I click, 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 click with the mouse, with the control key held down, we can double check. We hover over that. There's one missing. Put that one in. And they're all white, which means they're all connected to the power of some sort. Let's click on the data and we'll need to bring in, remember we've got a button to toggle the display lights. So we'll drag that, hold control. We want a display light on the depth, on the speed, on the compass ball. We want it on the new display over here and the new display over here. And I think that's all of them. One thing I did forget to do is set that to be something. This is our engine RPS. This is going to be our fuel level, I think we said. And our fuel level is 1500, so 4 digits on the front will do that. You could change it to this if you wanted to, if you don't care about, you know, fractions of fuel, but we'll leave it on that for now. I think that's what that was on anyway. Yeah, there you go. So let's copy what this thing was doing. So the engine RPS was being taken from the engine here. So instead of it going into here, we're going to move that to the engine RPS here now. And the fuel display, which was coming out of our fuel calculator, is now going to go into here instead. So now we'll get rid of this and this. Okay. We'll get rid of the old fuel display and the old engine RPS display. They've been moved. So I'm going to press the 1 key, which brings that block in and off my hotbar. And we'll just fill it in for now. We'll do something. We'll leave that for the future. In the same way I left a gap here, we'll leave that for the future. Now over here, I would like to put the battery stuff, as I said. So we'll control click that. And we shall turn this around. This is going to display our generator, what our generator's outputting. Now for the battery, I'm going to use, what's it called? A dial. The battery, we could use a display. We could use one of those here and display the battery level, but the battery only goes between 0 and 1 anyway. 0 being completely flat, 1 being completely full. If you have a series of batteries, they share the voltage state between themselves. So you only need to read off one of them as long as they're all connected. Now, if we click on the properties here and we say battery, we can set the minimum value to 0 and the maximum value to 1. And that will show a needle. So we can quickly glance down and see roughly what the battery is doing. If you look at it, it will actually show you the value. Over here, we're going to put generator. This is what the generator's outputting. Probably unlikely to go above a couple of digits, I don't think. So we'll leave it on that for now. We'll take a wild guess at what digit displays we need. Now we need to make sure that we hook power in. Always do the power. Whenever you put some new components down, always do the power. It's so easy to forget. Trust me, I still do it all the time. Now, where are we going to get the generator from? The generator output. Well, if we have a look at the generator, it has an output, data output given the electrical generation of the generator. So if we hook that up to here, we'll be able to see what it's doing. And the battery, which we only have one battery, I believe, which is this one here. If we hook that up to the battery value here, that will show the battery output. So we should see both of these displaying numbers now. The fuel we've wired up. The speed we've wired up. We don't have anything for the depth yet, so we're going to need a depth sensor. If we look at our distance sensor, this one, we're going to put one of these on the boat. Now, where do we need to put it? Well, we want to detect how far something away is. In this case, the ground. So it needs to go on the bottom of the boat and it needs to look down at the ground. You could put it at the front of the hull, but remember the front of the boat tends to bob up and down quite a bit, so you'll see a lot of variation as you're riding along the sea. What I like to do is put it near the back here. This is what's important anyway. This is the stuff that's going to get hit at the end of the day. So this is what we want to know, how far away this is from the bottom. So if we delete that block there, it doesn't look like it's connected to anything. So we'll just rotate that into position. And then we'll click on the paint icon, click the black, and we'll just fill that in there. Now, if we click on logic and go to power, always do power first. Remember I said that? Where do we want to connect that to? The main breaker. We'll put that on the main breaker B. Be careful you get the right one. A is the input and B is the output. So once you switch the breaker, that sensor will become active. That'll tell us the depth. What about the forward speed? Remember we had a... By the way, if these go black and you're not sure why, it's because that's the last color you used. Just click on a color and you'll change them back again. We had a linear speed sensor, which is this one here. Outputs the current linear speed in meters per second, allowing you to measure how fast your vehicle is traveling. Sensor outputs the speed of the components in one of 4 modes. Modes can be changed by selecting the sensor. Okay, we'll click on that. Where do we put this? We could put it at the front of the boat. We could stick it here, no problem at all. Or we could put it inside the boat. It doesn't matter. As long as it's pointing the direction that we want to measure the speed, that's all that matters. So if you don't want to mess up the front of your boat, stick it here. If you fancy having a sensor looking out the front of your boat, put it there. Doesn't matter. As long as it's pointing forward as the boat goes, it will measure the speed in that direction. If you click on the properties of the boat, of the sensor, sorry, you can see there's an absolute speed and there's a directional speed, a horizontal and a vertical. So it can be quite choosy about what you want it to measure. We want to measure the speed in the direction that the boat is currently facing, as in this line here. If you project outwards from there, we want the speed in that direction. If we turn the boat, we still want the speed in that direction. We'll put it on direction, then we'll check the power situation. This sensor doesn't need power. This one does. Don't ask me why. We go to the speed sensor and we drag this up to the speed in knots. But wait a minute, the sensor's generating in meters per second, but we want to display it in knots. How do we translate that? Well, you could use some logic gates, but what I like to use is a little microcontroller. So if you press the tab key and then you look for micro, this will give you a microcontroller. Click on that, and what it'll do is it'll give you an absolutely gigantic microcontroller. So let's not do that. Let's do it a different way. Just click up here and click on the microcontroller editor. That's no good because that's one I've already made earlier. Okay. This is where it gets slightly annoying. We'll click on microcontroller, stick it on the deck for now. Okay. Click on properties, and then you want to edit the microcontroller. Yes, we want to do that. We want to get rid of all of this stuff here. What it's doing is it's bringing in things that I've got from the past. So click on design, this one here, and we want to control the inputs and outputs first. We don't have any inputs that's a control signal. We just want a number. So this is the number coming in, and then we want a number going out. Very, very simple. We'll drag these over to here like that, and we'll bring the size of them down to 1:2. There you go. So it's a very, very small controller. This is the width. This is the length. We'll say speed in knots. We'll call it. Go back to our logic and make sure we've got the speed in meters per second coming in. and speed in knots going out. That way, KTS. Speed in knots going out. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. And we'll go up to logic here. And what we'll have is, ignore these. We'll have speed in meters per second and speed in knots. There you go. This is the number coming in. This is the number going out. How do we translate that? What you need is press the tab key. You want a function f of x. This is going to take a value coming in, x, and do something to it. So we'll put that down like that. We'll then take this speed, send it in. This will be the value of x, and the output, f of x, will go to here. If you click on this, you can do all kinds of functions on it, but what we want to do is do x times 1.944. That is, if you multiply meters per second by 1.944, you end up with knots. So that's all we're doing. Take the input value, x, multiply it by 1.944, and spit it out again. Simple. That will convert meters per second into knots. If you go back to design, if you want to, you could add a little graphic here like that. You could, so that when you see it in your editor, you know what it is. K, T, S, whatever you like. I'm just rushing this. There you go, KTS. And then you hit save. You go speed in knots. Done. Are you sure you want to overwrite this controller? Yes, because I've already got one called speed in knots. And that's it. Now, when you exit, click on this, update the selected microcontroller with the schematic. So what that will do is update the one that you put on your boat to not, instead of a gigantic one, you've now got this one, but we'll get rid of that. Right, let's go back and stick this microcontroller in. So we're going to stick it down here somewhere. Press the tab key and then look for speed. Oh, look, speed in knots, microcontroller. We'll click that. We can put that down here. If you want to change the color, you can do. Put that into place. And when we go to our logic, you'll see it has the input and the output as we defined. Remember? Green is for data remember. So now we take the speed, send it in, speed in meters per second, send the value out into here. And that will now display the speed in meters per second. So let's save that. Scroll start about, I don't know, 4, 5, what are we on now? 3? Who knows? Let's say 4. Spawn that in and we'll have a quick look. Now that was a very, very, very rushed overview of a microcontroller. There are so many things you can do with a microcontroller, and I will go into the detail at some point, but not in this video. We'll just keep it very simple for now. Now notice that the speed indicator is showing a number, but the depth indicator is not. Why? The reason, if you remember, was the speed sensor doesn't need power to work. The depth indicator does. I don't know why, but if when you throw the master breaker switch, you should find that the depth indicator works, but it's not, which means we messed something up. Fuel indicator's good, generators showing nothing, batteries, look, batteries depleting because we're basically taking power. We put the lighting on, like that. Just give it a little bit of throttle. Start it up. Now you will have to debug your boats when you do this, as I'm doing now. You basically do some stuff and then see if it works. We found one problem. Depth indicator's not working. The speed indicator is working. You can see it's kind of fluctuating around as the boat bounces. The engine RPS is now displaying. The battery indicator is showing 0.88, so the battery is depleting. The generator is throwing some numbers out. If we speed up the engine, the generator output should increase. There you go. And hopefully that battery should start. There you go. Battery's charging now. So you can see there's a certain sort of speed that you need to get to before you start. You know, your generator's producing enough power to overcome the drain and charge the battery up. But it looks like the stuff is working. Let's turn that off. Yeah, all the systems are lit apart from that one, so there's another bug here. We didn't like these two systems, and that one's not displaying anything. So let's go and fix that. Press the R key, bring it back in the bench. It's either going to be a power or a signal. It won't ever be anything else. If we hover over this, we can see that everything does indeed have power, so it must be a signal problem. In terms of the displayed lights, I can see that the generator's not got a backlight display on it. And also, backlight for the battery. Okay, so that's fixed those two. So I'm just going to look at this here, and this is the depth, which I completely failed to link up. There you go. So we'll link that up. That should fix those two. What I want to do is just quickly touch up some stuff here. If I control click that, I'm going to fill in these bits and pieces here that we didn't actually do, just to tidy things up. And, you know, maybe we'll copy that color into here like this, and leave that color like that, just to make it all look nice and neat. So there you go. We've added a whole bunch of components onto the boat that's going to give us more information about what the systems are actually doing. And what we've kind of done is put the engine stuff on the left. So this is the gear indicators. This is the fuel level, the battery indicator, the charge. And over on the right is what is the boat doing? Which direction is it heading? How fast is it going? And how high are we above ground, at the land, if you like? We can put more stuff over here later, and we've got space down here for buttons as well. So that's looking pretty good. One last thing I'd like to do is just put some more lights on the boat. In particular, navigation lights. Now, boats are, well, funny enough, planes are like boats. When the aviation industry kicked off and things started happening and they started creating planes and didn't know how to measure, you know, navigational stuff and speed and lighting, they just copied the maritime stuff, which have been going for hundreds and hundreds of years. So funnily enough, on a boat, the green lights go on the left side, so on the starboard side, and the red lights go on the port side. Now, there are directional rules about the lighting on boats, but I'm just going to keep it simple. So what we'll do is we'll stick a light. We could search for it in here, or again, if you want to, we can just control click whatever we can see. Not that one, obviously. Try that one. Just control click a light, and it should copy it. There you go. If you're really lazy, just control click something on the screen. Now, at the back of a boat, or the stern, you should always have a white stern light, so we'll put that in here. And we'll paint that like that. So white stern light goes here. On the right hand side, we should have, so on the starboard side, we should have green lights. Now, strictly speaking, the green lights on a boat need to point outwards. I can't remember the exact angle, but from the front, like the lights should be visible from the front, and also an arc of 90 degrees plus 22.5 or something. So roughly this kind of angle. We're not going to bother with that. We're just going to put green lights on the right, red lights on the left, white on the back. So if you want to be super accurate, you can start to hide your colors if you want to, but for ease, we'll just do it simplistically. So we'll go into mirrored mode. Just check our mirrors in the right place. And yes, it is right down the middle. So we'll just knock out a couple of blocks, maybe like here and say here, like that. And we won't use the main, you know, the big lighting. We'll use the little nav lighting, the little indicator lights. So they won't be visible from a great distance. We'll just on here. They won't be visible from a great distance, but it doesn't really matter for what we're doing. There we go. And one over here like that. And then for the colors, what do you want to do for colors? Click on paint, and you want to go into additive mode. And the starboard light will be green. Make sure you click on the actual bulb, by the way. And the port side light will red. That. And we've got the stern light in bright white. That's fine. If you want to tone the color of the light down, if this is like too bright for you, let's say on the deck here, we think, oh, we don't really want it like stupidly bright. Just go into additive mode and you can basically gray the light down. Hang on a second. Why is that not adjusting? There we go. So that would be bright white. That will be a darker grey. That's an even darker grey. So that is a way of making the light output something not bright. So you can dial it back a little bit like that. Power. Let's do the power. We want to go off the main breaker. We want to go to the indicator lights here, 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 and the stern lights. And we're going to drive it all off the same switch, which is this one here, the lighting. Hold the control key down and bang, 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 like that. Save, just so we don't lose it. Spawn it in, and hopefully we haven't messed it up. That should all work. Put the breaker on. Okay, displays are all working, they're all lit up. This one's now shown the depth indicator, which is 5.3 meters. I should have put brackets M on the depth indicator so we know. Fuel, you can see that's working correctly. That's all working. We know the gears work. Our stern light's working. The inside lights at the back there should be slightly dimmed. And you can see the red dots down there. And for some reason, I left it in mirror mode. Always a problem when you're in mirror mode. It can be really helpful and it can be really annoying. Green, additive, that. Because what it did was it copied, when I was in mirror, it duplicated it on the other side. So we'll fix that while we're here. Depth in meters. Save the boat. Spawn. So the boat will function exactly like the last boat, yeah? So if you've got the boat already, this is not going to function any different. It's not going to go any quicker or turn faster or carry more stuff. None of those things. But what it is going to do is show you more information and provide slightly better lighting. So as we head out now, you will see the speed in knots picking up. Now, armed with this information, you can start to do a couple of little experiments and fine-tunings. For example, if I max out my throttle and my clutch, right, I'm now going at maximum speed. My engine RPS is, what, 17? Just over 17 rotations per second. And my speed is 11.4 knots. So 17.4, 11.4. If we now engage high gear, we went from 11.4 to 7.8-ish. So that's about, what, almost 50%. If we went to low gear again, we go about 50% quicker. We go from 8 to just over 11. Yeah? But our RPS goes from 8.8, which is about 9, to 17 and a bit. So what happens is we almost double the RPS, but we only get about 50% more speed out of it. And that is why you end up burning a lot more fuel, but you don't get as much speed back. You don't change gear and half your RPS and half your speed. That's not how it works. Because as you go faster, the resistance of the water gets exponentially more. And this is where you have to start tuning things now, because a diesel engine runs at RPS 7, ideally. But it's not going to go very quickly. So you need to find the right balance now. You can tune the gear ratios to get you a decent speed increase, but it doesn't, you know, completely swallow your fuel, which is what it'll do if you let it. But we can also tell that our battery, which is down here, is now charging nicely. So when we're running in high gear, the battery charges nicely. If we run it, sorry, in low gear it charges nicely. If we run it in high gear, does the battery still charge? That's the question. Well, the output of that thing is about 0.5. And you can see the battery is drained. So the answer is no. If we run this thing in our current high gear, we will drain the battery. With the current, as you add more systems, obviously you add more drain. So this is a constantly changing thing, but we know for a fact this is not sustainable. So one thing we could look at doing is changing the gear ratio slightly and, you know, perhaps going a little bit quicker for a bit more RPS and making sure we've got a sustainable battery. But now we have the information. So I will upload this boat and drop you a link in the Steam in the video description. I'll drop you a link to the Steam Workshop item in case you don't want to be bothered building this, you just want to run with it. This is the upgraded version of our boat. It will require you to have those sensors unlocked like I had unlocked and the navigation. So if you're following it through, you want to add it yourself, absolutely fine. If you just want to download this version and just play with it, I'll drop it in Steam for you. Hope you're enjoying the playthrough, guys. I'm having a lot of fun. I hope you are too. Leave me your comments, let me know what you're thinking. Let me know any stuff that you spot. And other than that, I shall see you in the next video. Take care, guys. Happy building.